Welcome back, Airbnb hosts and investors. This is quite an interesting day. Airbnb has announced in a press release that they have launched SuperGuest, amongst other things, which we're going to cover in this live stream. Welcome in. But we have to stay to the end because I, while digging for the information for this live stream, found something that they did not tell us in the press release that could be huge as well. So there's some things that Airbnb is not telling us. Now, if you're here, you're interested to know why Airbnb launched SuperGuest. It seems kind of like long overdue, but they killed Superhost. So now that Superhost is dead, why would they want SuperGuest? The reason why is going to blow your mind. It may be one of the most genius things that Airbnb has done to try to win their market share back. But now the question we have to ask is, should hosts be concerned? If you're a host, watch this. This will help you run your business. My name's Sean. I help Airbnb business owners make tons of super money. So please subscribe if you're an Airbnb host and want to be a better host, because this is where we go to learn all of the greatest things. So I'm going to load some things here. This is the press release, and I will leave the link in the bottom of the video for you as well, just so you can kind of have some fun. Now, in this press release, Airbnb has announced, obviously, let me show you the very first part, under recognition for investing in the Airbnb community. This is going to be the section right here. Airbnb has launched SuperGuest. Now, there's a bigger puzzle here I want to show you before I explain exactly why Airbnb did this. If we go back up top in this press release, they also announced that Airbnb Plus is back. Do you guys remember Airbnb Plus? I think I do. Now, remind me if I'm wrong here. Airbnb Plus did exist, and now it's back. This press release doesn't make it seem like it ever existed before. But yeah, so Airbnb Plus is going to be a next tier of properties. And there's another thing here too, Airbnb's collections. Remember categories? Well, they've expanded collections now too. So you can actually have new property types, as you see right here. So Airbnb's big play, let me map it out for you. There's going to be new properties under Plus. I think they're starting with 10,000 properties under Plus. And then they're starting, or 4,000 properties under Plus. And then they're starting with 4,000 guests as super guests. Backwards, 10,000 guests and 4,000 properties. Here's Airbnb's play. They're going to use this to try to win back hosts that hate guests. All right, so let's give you kind of a history of what went on with Airbnb and how they got to this point where they've lost all their good inventory. This is their play to get good inventory back, and I'll explain this in full here in just a second. Let me make sure that the audio is good. Hey guys, what's up? Good, we're good to go. So when Airbnb launched, you used to stay on an air mattress and then in a private room, in a living room. And their big push initially was stay with a host, right? They really pitched the host as this commodity against hotels, right? The hotels didn't care about you. Then Airbnb realized that they had so much. They had yards, they had kitchens, they had real customer service, they had all the square footage that an Airbnb wouldn't give you. And they went through this boom phase after stay with a host. And when COVID hit, everybody didn't want to be in a hotel because of fear. This led to greed in the space. A lot of investors put properties into the space. And then there's too much bad product, and there's good reason to attack Airbnb, and hotels really push that. I think we all remember this part, right? So then there was an exodus. Guests left, only the bad guests stayed, and then good hosts left because Airbnb tightened up their policies, and then all the good hosts were like, I'm done. It's not making the money it used to. Airbnb's being mean to me. Guests are trash. And they left. Then companies like Sonder were the things that were around, and Airbnb just killed Sonder. You might have seen in my last live stream, we talk about the death of Sonder and how Airbnb's policy changes were designed precisely to put them out of business, right? So now we are in a new landscape where Airbnb is trying to build a new path forward, and their press release is really that promise. If you read the title, their new path forward is a roadmap to bring magical travel to everyone. They're trying to do something fun again. You might even see their new Instagram post, like Elphaba from Wicked is flying to a magical Airbnb. So here's how this will work, guys. And I'm going to make some predictions for 2026. A lot of you are smart. So I would like you to be in the comments too if you disagree or if you want to riff on my predictions for how this is going to go. And reminder, stay to the end. I've got more for you that's hidden inside of an interview with Airbnb that isn't in this press release. There's more to this, okay? So if Airbnb creates SuperGuest, Airbnb can then make the promise to a property, like a really nice property that doesn't trust Airbnb, that they can only allow SuperGuest. Remember how there's a superhost filter and now it's a guest favorite filter? When a guest travels, they can click guest favorite and filter everything out. Well, Airbnb for hosts now have good track record, but good track record is flawed because a lot of hosts don't leave negative reviews, right? So SuperGuest is going to be like an evolution of Guest Favorite, where it's not just good reviews, but there's going to be all sorts of other stuff in that. Where if a host had to call, like on behalf of a guest doing something wrong, if there's any resolution claims, I'm sure it's going to be a very Guest Favorite style relationship. And then these super guests get all sorts of membership benefits, which we're going to find out what those are, and I'm going to riff on that too. But then these super properties like castles and all the beautiful stuff that Airbnb wants to show that don't list on Airbnb because the guests are trash, Airbnb can say, list back on Airbnb, but only allow super guests. So your hyper luxury, hyper beautiful property is safe. Then Airbnb can list those on Airbnb Luxe and Airbnb Plus. Then Airbnb has the curb shopping, the window shopping appeal that it used to have back when categories existed. I believe categories is going to come back, or some version of it with collections or something, because Airbnb wants that magic of adoption that they lost. But they can't like brag that they have great inventory if they don't have great inventory. And they cannot have great inventory unless they protect their great inventory from bad guests. Does it make sense? So there's more I think that will happen here. Even if you're not a Airbnb Plus listing, if you're not a Luxe listing, stuff like this, when we get down to the benefits for these users here, where Airbnb says this new membership program offers benefits across the entire trip, I have a feeling we're going to be able to be involved in that. I believe that there's going to be a rollout where you can have a custom price drop, like a last minute discount that only applies to SuperGuest, or an early bird discount that only applies to SuperGuest. I think Airbnb is going to allow us to make the deal tastier for SuperGuests as part of the total thing. It might get messy if they go any further than that, like dynamic cancellation policies for SuperGuest. That could be a little sticky, but that actually that's going to be our next topic too. That's new in the news, and you probably haven't heard about it. So Airbnb will let us touch benefits for guests, but I think if they go too far and like every detail can change, it can be a little rough. But that's SuperGuest, and I think that they did it so that way they can win back properties. It's not even about the guest; it's about the deal flow. So now, another thing that you guys need to know, there's two big changes Airbnb's making as well. Airbnb's turning into a social media company. Who heard about that? So Airbnb is creating social features where you can connect with your guests or connect with people who you've traveled with even after the stay is gone. So there's going to be like direct messaging, group chat, all sorts of extra cool stuff. They're trying to keep users on the platform. Kind of like Game of Thrones girl Arya Stark, Macy Williams made a social media just for creators at one point, and I think they're going to try to copy that. Just so you know, I think that's what it's going to look like if I'm going to dig into my bag of memory. Call me the giver. I just kind of remember everything. So next thing that you do need to know, I've got so many links here. Dynamic cancellation policy. This is the thing I'm most excited about because it affects the algorithm and it affects our pricing strategy. Early 2026, Airbnb is also going to roll out dynamic cancellations. We may deploy this through a channel manager. We may deploy this through pricing software like Price Labs or Guesties, GPO, etc. Or we may have to just do this with rule sets. I think for now, initially it will be done with rule sets because changing the whole API and getting Price Labs or Guesty or Hospitable to work with that takes code. Code takes time. Internally, you're going to be able to change your cancellation policies by going into your multi-calendar, picking some nights, using a rule set, and changing your cancellation policy settings. I think that's how that's going to go. What that means is for peak seasons and peak events, you can be strict, and then you can be flexible in low demand. And to bring you up to speed why this actually matters is because Airbnb has changed their algorithm. Airbnb's algorithm has what we would call a true negative score, and so there's this final print that Airbnb says your listing is X, Y, Z, good or bad compared to everybody else. Everybody gets a score, right? Scale of 1 to 1,000. Now your number, if it's 5% negative or 10% negative or whatever, if your cancellation policy is flexible, you might get a little bonus or a neutral rating for that. But if you're strict, any negativity marks to your listing get exponentially added. So like if you have a super strict cancellation policy, any negative number you get is a 10x negative because Airbnb is now Airbnb has evolved their algorithm to go from interest to satisfaction to trust. And risk mitigation is a big part of the algorithm. So because Airbnb understands that prices go up in peak season and that sellers have control in peak season, Airbnb wants us also to be able to still protect ourselves when the money's important, but then be more flexible when the buyer is in control, and we'll get that algorithm benefit of going flexible when it's hard for us. And so you actually do get an algorithm boost by being flexible versus strict. Watch my algorithm videos if you didn't know that. And if you didn't know that, welcome to the channel. This is the biggest place to learn Airbnb in the world. This is the largest YouTube channel for short-term rental education, and our students here have made billions of dollars with free content. How's that? So let's get into the goodies. You guys ready for some goodies? Okay. So Airbnb's got some stuff that they've done also. This next thing I just found out this morning is Airbnb's partnering with Instacart. And this is where we're going to talk about whether things are actually good for hosts. How many of you are here, like are multi-year hosts? Show of hands. If you've been here for a while, you get this, right? Airbnb's release of services allows people to have a massage therapist or a hairstylist at their property. And you don't get paid for that, do you? No. But there's something called the Host Co, thehost.co/Sean, so I can get credit for your website visit. But they allow you to sell stuff, massage therapists, private chefs, everything else, and you get paid for that. But the reason why Airbnb launched services wasn't just because the Host Co proved you could do it, but Airbnb wants to get more people from hotels because hotels have bars and spas and stuff. But then Airbnb realized that there's so much potential revenue here that why not also stock the fridge? Because what are the three things that Airbnb has that hotels really don't? You have a kitchen. Hotels rarely give you any kitchen worth talking about. You get a yard in a lot of cases with these houses, and those yards are beautiful. And then you get square footage. Like aside from getting the presidential suite or the upgrade at the Cosmopolitan to the Lanai suite or something, you really don't get a lot of square footage. And even that, the Lanai suite, 2 floors, 700 square feet max, more like 630, 640 probably. And so any apartment in any city tends to give you the same amount of square footage that even a premium suite in downtown like Las Vegas can give you, for example. So this move here is more of a cash grab now and less of a let's be better than hotels, I think is what's going on. We do this for our guests. We provide this service. We go shopping and do this. And a lot of my students do too. This will take money out of hosts' pockets where hosts are actually offering these services. So I recommend you guys get on the Host Co and get your retailing together, get this right, because there's another thing that if you think about, if Airbnb is doing this, this is proof that there's money for you to be made. You can make money. Anything that Airbnb tries to do with the guests on Airbnb are things that we can try to do with our business, right? So they partnered with this Instacart to roll out personal grocery shopping, and I do think it's going to take food off the, pun intended, food off the table for some of these Airbnb hosts, but you should roll it out before it gets big and try to like get your own thing together. Now, let's go to something fun. This is Airbnb's Q3 earnings call report from a website, Finviz, okay? I don't know much about the website, but they do have this section here, which I want to talk about. How are you guys doing, by the way? Are you having fun? Is this valuable? If this is valuable, there is a like button, I think somewhere down here. It'd be super wicked awesome if you press that. It's like the coolest thing for me. It makes Airbnb think that I actually do my job as a creator. And if this is educational, you're the bomb, right? So they asked 5 questions, and the reserve now, pay later one, which is what Richard Clark said in the first question, it does bring up another question for me, which is, what is the real benefit of flexible cancellation policies and stuff like that? And Airbnb's new policy with chargebacks, this makes this really rough, right? So cancellations have gone up, is what the call has confessed to. That's something we should be concerned about. I did just have a cancellation for one of my houses. We're flexible because the house was super strict 30, was getting no bookings. We switched to flexible. It went from making $1,700 one month to making over $8,000 the next month just because of that change. But even with that big change, we still have to suffer the negative side effects of flexible cancellation, which is there was a reservation that should have checked in today, canceled 2 days ago. It was 3 days long and it was like nearly $2,000, and we lost that. Way freaking sad, and we're not going to get a booking last minute for $2,000. It's just not going to happen, right? So cancellations are up because financial uncertainty is up and people are a little bit more broke than ever. The dollar isn't really worth much anymore, stuff like that. There's all sorts of geopolitical reasons for people to not travel. And the reserve now, pay later just gives more opportunity to reserve a property where somebody ends up not staying and not paying, right? It does increase this risk exposure to hosts. And that has nothing to do with your cancellation policy. You can be strict, and this can happen and Airbnb blocks your calendar, and then somebody doesn't pay, and then they miss the payment, and then they unblock your calendar, and then you don't get paid, or whatever. And then a guest, even if you did get paid, a guest could charge back and say, I didn't stay, I shouldn't have to pay. And if Airbnb doesn't fight that chargeback or doesn't fight it well, you don't get paid again, because Airbnb's chargeback policy is that you foot the bill when Airbnb screws up their merchant of record BS, right? That's something that I am a little bit displeased about, but we haven't seen, either we haven't seen it or Airbnb's not disclosing this, and I need to go dig into our accounting data and find out if they're sneakily removing money without disclosing that you lose a dispute. I need to find that out. I'm gonna hit you guys later with that. So Airbnb is talking about new investments, and a lot of my friends have been talking about Japan. This has been a topic of great interest for us, expanding our business. There's a lot of emerging markets, and Japan is allowing Airbnb now, and I think it could be a huge cash grab for anybody who has friends in Japan. I'll tell you, like, I've got students in other countries, 43 countries to be exact, and some of them are expats, like in Colombia and places like that. And trying to do business as an outsider is really tough. And every student that I have, the very first thing we do is we find an intermediary who's a local, who wants to do some business. And I've got a friend in Japan who is a translator, and I've been talking to him about this idea. That's what, if I was going to expand into Japan, that's how I'm trying to work on that, get a local. Now, there's one thing that is said right here. This is the thing that I think is really interesting. In the coming quarters, the Stock Story team will be monitoring, one, the rollout and adoption of AI-powered search and support features across more markets and languages. AI-powered search, right? I don't know what exactly that's going to mean for guests, or if that's already in play. And if you guys want to play with this, here's what it could mean. But I don't think this is technically AI, so this can't be it, I don't think. If you use a VPN right now, just to have some fun, get a VPN, open a browser, and log into Airbnb from London. London will tell you, go to Rio de Janeiro or go to Seoul, South Korea. But if you then change your VPN to Dallas or Austin, Dallas will say, go to Austin, San Antonio, Broken Bow, go to Houston, go to these places. Airbnb is using not only your personal data, but also your location that you're currently, where your device is, to try to tell you where you should go next. I don't think that this is AI. I don't think that site is AI, but they are trying to be more dynamic and extremely discerning with what they show people, right? So, for example, the algorithm has made a fun change where it tethers previous search intention with the 5-star rating. So if somebody searches with a pet or a guest, like a kid, or for a pool, or for like no-step access to the front house, if they leave a 5-star review for these things, your listing gets indexed positively for those 5-star reviews. So now imagine somebody is wheelchair bound in Austin, and they log into Airbnb, and the home screen then shows them every ADA friendly listing that's top rated within a region. Right? This is one of the things that Airbnb is doing. So if you guys have no-step access to your property, really get on it and actually go and do the ADA accessible stuff, because if somebody searches, stays with no-step access, gives you a 5-star rating, you will have this exponential visibility for being ADA friendly. I think that's actually a really big deal. Do any of you guys have questions? And yeah, Riley's not here. He's picking up his girlfriend from the airport. So thanks for liking the content. Yes, I will share let's actually see if I can share the link right now. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to hit, I love iPhone products. This Mac Studio is a beast, but I can share this to my cell phone, and I'm going to drop this in the chat for you guys. So live chat is about to have this link, and then I'm going to drop the press release for you guys right now. Let's check the chat here in 2 seconds. So link number 1, and then press release is link number 2. Okay, because you guys asked for it. Now, for those of you who tuned in late, Airbnb launched SuperGuest. And in summary, Airbnb's launch of SuperGuest, I don't think is what we think it is. On the front end, it's like, oh, cool, it's for the guests. So guests feel good, they're going to get some benefits. I don't actually think that's how this is going to go. I think that the reason why Airbnb has launched SuperGuest is because Airbnb is trying to win back big properties that do not have trust in Airbnb. Because if a big sexy mansion had bad guests and left Airbnb, the only way to get them back is for Airbnb to say, hey, we've improved our guest screening, we've got a new class of guest called SuperGuest, and if you come back, we will let you filter and only allow SuperGuests at your property, right? like imagine Buckingham Palace on Airbnb. They're not just going to let anybody in there, right? But if SuperGuest can be compelling enough, you could get celebrities put their properties up. You can get all sorts of stuff happening under this SuperGuest protection kind of thing. And SuperGuest protection, there might actually be like an upgrade to air cover with SuperGuest protection too. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. This one step is not considered no step. So if you have one step at the front, get like a little ramp, right? Get like an 8-inch like a wheelchair ramp to cover the one step. That's what I would do. If your threshold has like a 3-inch like ridge too, that's also technically a step. It's an obstruction. So work on that. That's what I would try to fix. Rootson, I do not have content in Spanish, pero mi español es mejorando cada día. So give me a year and a half, and I'll start talking in Spanish for you guys. It's hard to be like this in Spanish. You guys are great. Thanks. I don't see any like really heavy. I don't see any really heavy duty questions. And sorry about the echo. It just could be that I've got 2 mic sources by accident. Sorry about that. With that said, guys, I'm going to leave a video here for the algorithm so you guys can understand what's going on. And as always, my friends, I'll see you on the other side.